Good morning and welcome to another edition of Our Town, brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust here on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. Big show this morning. We'll talk about city matters with Decorah City Manager Travis Goedken. We'll talk about Decorah School District matters with Tim Cronin, the Superintendent of the Decorah Community School District, as well as Allamakee Community Schools District Superintendent Jay Mathis. Welcome to Medicare seminar taking place at the end of this month. We'll talk to Jim Sims from the Senior Health Insurance Information Program. We're going to kick off the program talking about the Cities of Stars event coming up at the end of this month at Decorah High School. Jason Rausch will be our first guest this morning on Our Town, brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust. You're listening to it on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. When it comes to vocal music talent, the city of Decorah is definitely a city of stars, and that's exactly what's going to be happening later this month at Decorah High School. And here to talk about it is Jason Rausch, the vocal director at Decorah High School. And Jason, tell us about the City of Stars coming up later this month.
Yeah, we got an exciting event planned for you. We started this event 4 years ago. We just needed a change of pace from our normal madrigal dinner. So this event is, as you said, called City of Stars. It's Broadway music, musical theater, jazz, popular music. And I think people are going to really enjoy it. We get a full meal served for you. And it's all here at the high school in the cafeteria with wonderful students. We are including some instrumental ensembles, some string ensembles from the orchestra. I believe we're going to have a percussion ensemble from our band, a couple speech musical theater groups. You know, they're preparing for district speech coming up here this weekend, and they're gonna be a part of it. It's going to be a really fun event, and it was very popular when we did it 4 years ago. So we're excited to bring it to you guys again.
It's basically everything the historical event has been, just a touch more eclectic. Is that a fair way to put it?
Well, it's not the 16th century Renaissance period. We're not in period costumes. You know, we're just in regular 21st century attire. And, you know, it's a different set of music. You know, it's not, you're going to hear a couple madrigals just because we can't totally let that go, but really a majority of the music is going to be musical theater and popular music.
And the event's coming up on the 29th of this month, but if you want tickets, you better act fast, right?
Yeah, you better really act fast, because when I checked this morning, we only had about 40 tickets left of our 220. So it's pretty popular right now, and it's exciting to see the interest from folks. But we have tickets for sale through an online source. It's ludus.com. You also can just stop in the school and buy them from Jackie or Denise in the office if you want to pay by cash or check. But I can give you the address. It might be a little bit hard to catch it, but it's decorahschools.luds.com. ludus.com. So that's where people can buy their tickets, and they can select if they have special dietary needs at that time also.
How many students are involved in this production?
Well, I would say we're probably, with servers and everything, we're looking at least 60 kids that are involved. Yeah, and the food's being prepared by Chef Chad Elliott here at the school. I can share, it's what we're having. It's a chicken cutlet with a creamy 5-cheese pasta. That's the main dish, and some tiramisu for the dessert. So it sounds delicious. You get a meal like that, you get great entertainment, eclectic entertainment. What more can you ask for on a Sunday evening in Decorah, Iowa? Yeah, I mean, it's always, sometimes it's hard to find things to do in January up here in the cold upper Midwest. And this is a positive, joyful, warm event. The cafeteria will be all decorated up, and you'll feel like you've been transported to maybe Hollywood or something, with all these stars and decorations and such. It's just a good time. We just try to make it special and different from what we offer at other times of the year.
And of course, every time we talk about a special event, I like giving you the opportunity to brag about a few of your students, and that the recent Dorian Festival up at Luther, Decorah kids shined once again up there.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, we were at Luther College a week or two ago, and there's a solo competition that happens. There's over 900 students that participate in the honor choir, and then several of them do the solo contest, and I require all my students to do that. And 4 of our students made it to the semifinal round, which was 25 students, and that included Sally Laybourne, Jenna Hartz, and Ada Lovelace. And then Michael Noose, who was also a semifinalist, then was selected as one of the 5 singers out of 900 and some singers at this festival, to get to sing a full solo that he did last year for a solo contest. And it was very exciting to have that. We've had several students over the years that have been selected for this honor, so it was great once again to continue a great tradition here. Just proud of all the kids. Several of the other kids that did it too got honorable mention. So we're just really proud of how hard the kids work here at Decorah High School and what they're offering and sharing with people outside of our school building.
And once you develop that love of music, that love of singing, it really never leaves you, does it?
No, it's kind of addictive. You love that feeling of community, of singing together, and some people really like that idea, the singing by themselves on stage and shining that way too. But we're just glad kids are participating and getting in touch more with their humanity through music.
And congratulations to the vocal music program and all of its success. But one final time, tell us about City of Stars and how people can get tickets for the event on the 29th.
Yeah, you can purchase tickets at decorahschools.ludus.com through Wednesday, January 25th at noon, or until they're sold out. So I would move quickly if you're interested in that. If you want to call the school and do purchase tickets that way or stop in at the school, you can do that with cash or check. And the event is January 29th. It's a Sunday at 5 p.m. in the cafeteria at the high school, featuring wonderful, wonderful Decorah High School students.
All right, Jason, we appreciate you taking some time telling us about the event as always. And we appreciate you and all the students at Decorah High School for making Decorah a better place through music as well.
Thanks for your support, Darren.
Jason Rausch from Decorah High School City of Stars event coming up on January the 29th. Coming up later this month at Winneshiek Medical Center, a Welcome to Medicare seminar will take place on January 31st. And here to discuss what will be going on at that seminar is Jim Sims, one of the Senior Health Insurance Program volunteers. Jim, tell us about what that seminar will all entail. Who should go to it? What type of information is going to be discussed that night?
Yes, thank you, Darren. Anyone who's getting close to turning 65, they can sign up for Medicare up to 3 months before their birthday. Some decisions need to be made. Do they need Medicare at all? Are they employed with a company of over 20 employees? Is their insurance as good as or better than Medicare? Do they take medications? Do they want original Medicare with a supplement and a drug plan, or one of the newer Medicare Advantage plans? Some of the decisions that they need to make.
And if you want to head to this event, registration is coming up here in the near future, from what I understand. Is that correct?
Yes, being it's held here at the hospital and with some of the COVID restrictions, we need to know which room we need, whether people needing masks, having enough supplies along. So they'll come to the east door, E1, and someone will be there to escort them to the meeting room.
And when is the registration deadline for this event?
Registration deadline is on Monday, the 23rd.
And the event itself, give us a reminder of the date of that.
That's the 31st at Winneshiek Medical Center, lower level, door E1, and that is from 6 o'clock until 8 o'clock.
And as you touched on, there's a lot of issues related to Medicare that basically it's not really a black or white discussion. It's a multi-layered discussion. And how many people that are close to that age or at all realize how many layers there is to the Medicare conversation and how important it is to inform yourself in all of what's going on related to it.
Right. The individual, I had a client this morning had a stack of mail. He's receiving the advertising. Everybody, every company in the world seems to know when you're turning 65. We have a container in the corner for that information.
And Jim, just give us a final rundown of who should be attending an event like this, the information that you will be providing that night, and how folks can sign up.
Well, anyone who is turning 65 or has turned 65 and is still working, there are options there. Maybe their employer insurance is more costly and has higher deductibles than Medicare, so could do some reviews there. A lot of misinformation out there talking to individuals. Somebody's told me this or somebody told me that. Well, get the real scoop. Stop in for the Medicare seminar put on at Winneshiek Medical Center, and it's SHIIP, Senior Health Insurance Information Program, and we have 4 representatives here at the hospital.
And let's talk about some of the work you do with the SHIIP. What type of services do you guys provide to make sure that folks that are hitting that age are as informed as they possibly can be about their medical care in their future?
This time of the year, it's mostly people coming in that are turning 65, receiving that mail, and wondering what their options are. In the fall, during open enrollment, October 15th till December 7th, it's people reviewing their drug plan. I met with over 160 clients during open enrollment, saving them over $90,000. About 75% of those individuals who came in ended up changing plans and saving money.
And if folks want to get a hold of somebody from SHIIP, what do they do?
Just call Carla Bakken here at the volunteer office. That's 563-387-3036. If you get her voicemail, just leave a message. She will call you back and we'll set up an appointment.
All right, Jim, we appreciate you taking the time and to inform us on what's going on with this seminar, as well as all the possibilities related to the Senior Health Insurance Information Program. We thank you for your time, and we thank you for all the help you provide people in letting them be more informed and make the best decisions for themselves.
Thank you, Darren. And thank you, KVIK.
Jim Sims from the Senior Health Insurance Information Program, a Welcome to Medicare seminar taking place January 31st at Winneshiek Medical Center. The deadline to register is this coming Monday. Having a conversation this morning with the superintendent of the Allamakee Community School District, Jay Mathis. And Jay, of course, in the month of January, a lot of issues related to education get brought up, especially with the start of the Iowa legislative session. The one that's getting a lot of attention right now is the voucher bill, the school choice bill. What you call it is probably what you feel about the bill. What, in your mind, is your reaction to what you've seen regarding that specific idea to this point?
Well, it's very frustrating for somebody in public education, Darren, when this is the third year. It's been brought up many times, but it's the third year we've been battling it, and the legislation gets worse every year. Last year it was $5,500 voucher per pupil. Now it's $7,600, which is obviously going to cost even more to the taxpayers and of Iowa. There's no way around that, and it's just yeah, I don't know where to start and stop. I mean, to me, one of the main cornerstones of our democracy is a free and appropriate public education guaranteed to all of our citizens, and we take that seriously. We take in every student and give them what's equitable for services, and we're accountable to the public, and to take public money and put it into private schools that have no accountability towards the taxpayers of Iowa is just to me, terribly wrong. And for those that have kids in the private school, I don't blame them for being excited about getting some funding to help pay for that choice, but the choice has always been there, and we have more choices in Iowa than most any state. You can have the best of both worlds. You can homeschool your kid and have them come here for band or chorus or to play athletics. You can, so there's all of those options are there. I don't believe they're doing it to try to help low-income folks, because those private schools don't even have to accept those students. It's just, so I'll leave it there, Darren. I don't want to go on a tirade here for forever and ever, but that's my obvious feelings about that issue.
I'll ask you one follow-up related to that, because obviously there is private school options and there's the homeschool options, and most of the private school options in our area are probably pre-K through 6. There are some pre-K through 8. You get to the high school level, I believe the nearest private high school to walk on is probably Dyersville-Beckman, which is a 2-hour trip. That alone, some may say, well, how much of a... There's not many parents that have the wherewithal or the resources to take their kids on the road 4 hours a day to go to a private high school, at least within the state of Iowa. And that alone says, is this really going to make that much of a difference? What say you to that specific situation?
No, that's an excellent point, and that gets to the fairness issue, which is completely unfair. 90% of the private school kids attend private schools in the metro areas, especially Des Moines, Iowa City. There's some parochial schools in the Waterloo area, but not a lot of, private for-profit type of schools. And so, yes, one of our concerns as a member of the Rural School Advocates of Iowa is the majority of this money, and the money we're talking about is significant. It's $300 to $400 million a year, and I'll just throw it out this way, and I think I'm very accurate here. 90% of our students in Iowa attend public schools. The governor has really given herself credit, and the legislature, for giving public schools $1 billion over the last 10 years of new money, which is appreciated and is significant. But the 10% of kids that go to private schools will see new money and new expenditures of $300 to $400 million a year, when the 2.5% she's promising or advocating for public schools will cost roughly $84 million next year. So not fair at all, but most of that money is going to get piped right into the metro areas. We're not going to see a lot of it. So again, I have no problem with people having with us competing against any school and respecting a parent's choice. If they send their kids here to St. Pat's for elementary, that's great. That's their call, and a great choice. And I don't begrudge them for getting some money, but it's just not a fair thing across the state of Iowa. And St. Pat's can only take in so many kids, and so they're going to have the challenge of deciding, okay, which kids are we going to take in if we only have room for 5 more kids in 4th grade next year? What families are we going to accept? There's going to be some unintended consequences there too, Darren.
And getting to some issues closer to home, at your board meeting last night, you discussed the district director boundaries. Every government entity has to go through this every 10 years with the census. What did the board decide on that front?
Well, we hired a firm that will research that for us, and our existing director districts that we've had for the last 10 years still are within the guidelines for having roughly within a certain percentage of the same population. So we're able to keep our director districts exactly as they have been. So for the next 10 years, they'll be as they have been for the last 10 years.
I know some districts in the state make all their school board positions at large. You guys have the director districts. Being the fact that the Allamakee Community School District is a pretty big district from a square miles perspective, is it more important to have director districts, knowing the fact that you want a voice from all parts of your district and not potentially just one community?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it's there for. And of course, you mentioned how large this district is, and it was communities of Dorchester and Waterville, Harpers Ferry, coming together with Waukon, and so we want to make sure that our rural areas are represented. And people are hearing voices from those constituents, and so we take that seriously.
There's always things to fix when it comes to a school district. You got a few capital projects on the agenda, including an HVAC project. Give us the latest on that.
Yeah, we're really excited about this. Several years ago, we were able to renovate and remodel, I shouldn't say remodel, but really address HVAC concerns in our East Elementary facility. And then the following summer, we put air conditioning and addressed the climate control and ventilation over at West Elementary. And when they built the high school here, the new part of this building, about half of that was air conditioned, and about 10 of those new classrooms were not. And then the old part of this building, built in 1966, has heating capability but no ventilation or no air conditioning. So this will air condition the majority of our classrooms. Now will all be air conditioned after this project. There's just a handful: industrial arts room, a FFA room, and a health room that are on the extreme east side of this building that are left to take care of. And our middle school cafeteria is not air conditioned either. So, but we'll get new windows and HVAC for a good share of this high school, middle school complex.
And when you have more of your buildings air conditioned in the district, does that potentially take away the need to have early outs when you have 90-degree days in late August and early September?
Yeah, we've really not had to have many of those since we got our elementary buildings done. We worry the most, those younger kids. But the other thing here in this high school, middle school, is we've used a lot of fans and circulated areas, the air from areas that are air conditioned, like the gyms and high school cafeteria and whatnot around. And so this building didn't get as hot as those elementary buildings. And so, but it still would be nice not to have a bunch of noisy fans blowing down the hallways now, and have better control over individual classroom heating and cooling and ventilation.
Have you put together your school calendar for 2023-2024 yet?
Yeah, I've got a draft that really mirrors this year's calendar, and that we'll take to our board in February. That we'll have our public hearing for the calendar at the beginning of that meeting on February 21st, and then we'll ask the board for their approval.
And of course, over the next few months, you'll be putting together your budget for next school year. You'll get that done, I believe, in early April. Looking at the budget process for this year, where is the district in good shape? What are going to be some of the challenges to putting this budget together?
Well, the question marks, of course, usually are what will our health insurance renewal rate be, and what will the legislature decide to give us for funding. And hopefully they decide that early in the session. I think they will, the way it sounds, which is always helpful. And the thing that's good for us this year is the prior 2 years we had lost about 12 students each of those 2 years, or 18, I guess it was. So about 36 students we were down over those 2 years, and then this year we were up 24 students. And so when your funding is based on pupils, then that makes a big deal. Of course, the unknown will be, will we lose some of the, if the voucher bill goes through, which it sure looks like they have plans to get it to go through quickly, will we lose some students there again, because of limits of how many. Again, this is speculation on my part, with how many students St. Pat's would be able to bring in. I hope it doesn't negatively impact us too much, but that could potentially, hurt our budget situation if we were to lose a bunch of students that way. So it's a big deal when you look at categoricals and everything. Each student is close to $10,000 that of revenue. So being up 24 students, that's $240,000. That's good, because we've lost money a couple years in a row. So we're in good shape, though, as far as our unspent reserves. Our district has always been mindful of making sure we have money in reserve, and that we run as lean as we can. And so I think we'll have plenty of money to serve our students appropriately into the future.
Related to student population, I see the board talked about an additional 6th grade position last night. How'd that conversation go, and what prompted that conversation?
Well, what prompted it is we've got a couple large elementary classes coming up, and also at the same time, St. Pat's announced last year that this will be the last year that they'll offer 6th grade, and so we'll get those roughly 18 students that would be 6th graders there next year coming here. And so and we keep 4 sections throughout the elementary in our public school, but then we've through reductions over the years, we only had 3 sections of 6th grade. So it'll help. We've got a good situation with the middle school, high school attached, that we can share some staff and have some teachers teach a few middle school classes and some teach some high school. But with only 3 6th grade teachers, we were having to have some of our 7th and 8th grade teachers cover a section or two of 6th grade. Especially we have an extra section of reading just to really focus on literacy and reading. And so this will help us serve all of our middle school students better, not just 6th grade. But that's what prompted it was St. Pat's, and then we've got some bigger classes in 3rd and 4th grade.
As we talk in full disclosure here on Wednesday morning, obviously Mother Nature is going to, looks like, greet us rudely with a winter storm here in the not too distant future. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you've done remote learning on a couple of snow days earlier on here in the academic year. What goes into the decision to potentially have a remote learning day? And I know you're not able to count that as a classroom day, but tell us about that process and what all goes into it.
Yeah, well, we do consider it a classroom day, but we cannot count it towards our total number of hours for the year. And our calendar has 53 and a half more hours than the minimum requirement, which isn't unusual for districts. We still kind of talk days because our teachers have a contract that's based on number of days that they are to serve. And so we've had 3 snow days, and we've done remote learning on 3 of those. It's unusual when we have 3 snow days before Christmas, but that's what we had this year, and it's really kind of highlights one of the reasons that I am a proponent for the virtual learning days is because we work so closely with NICC with dual credit classes, and they start their second semester right after, once they start back in January. So what the tradition here has been is we finish our semester and have semester tests before Christmas break. And so that semester is about 10 days shorter than second semester. Part of the reason for that is, the main reason has been to get these semester tests out of the way instead of coming back for 2 weeks in January and then trying to take those after the holiday break. But also, like I said, to work with NICC. And as you know, then in the second semester, the seniors get done about a week earlier than the rest of the students. So that kind of equalizes out that. But when we're trying to crunch in a semester in a shortened semester before Christmas, if we had 3 snow days that would be made up second semester, that only adds to that disparity in how long each semester runs. So it was good to have class on those days, and even though we don't get to count it towards our hours, we have enough hours built in, like I mentioned, to be able to do that. It can create some continuity for our students, and it helps with our teachers for planning on those days too, to during that semester, to know here's how much I've got to get done before the end of this semester, and I don't lose those 3 days. I get to it's not the same as being here in person. We don't argue that, but it's the next best thing.
Speaking of technology, I see the district has a new app. Tell us about it.
Yeah, we've got an updated website with a different software that helps us manage that. We're excited about that. It's got a lot more pictures and more interactive. And then the app, our old website, when you tried to pull it up on a phone, it just didn't work very well. You couldn't see everything. The links were hard to see. And so this app is from the same company as that operates our website, and it's very easy to get to the school calendar, to get to our sign up for our school alert system. Part of this process was switching school alert systems too, so we had to ask people to some got automatically signed up with their emails on Power School, our student management system, but a lot had to sign up, and so we appreciate people doing that. I can actually make the weather call from my cell phone now, which I couldn't before. I had to be on a computer, and I always worried about if I went in the ditch checking roads and couldn't get back to the office here, I'd have to call my secretary and ask her to do it. And so at least I can do it remotely as long as I've got cell service. That's another issue. But we're excited about our app, and I encourage people to either on the App Store, whether it's Google or Apple, to search for Allamakee CSD, and hopefully you'll find that app and can download it on your phone and have that convenience right on your phone.
Anything we're missing? Anything else you want to pass on to the public, as long as you got the forum this morning?
No, just thanks for the support. We're having a great school year. We're had a very busy winter with activities, and Brian was busy early rescheduling games. Last week there were games every night and Saturday here. It's great to see our kids in the classrooms. We've got awesome students and staff, and I couldn't be more thankful for what we have here. And regardless of what happens with the voucher bill, we're going to continue to do the best job we can here, and appreciate everyone's support.
All right, Jay, thanks for the time and the chat on a number of topics here this morning. We appreciate the time, and have yourself a good day.
Thanks, Darren. You too.
Jay Mathis, Superintendent of Goedken in the Allamakee Community School District. Time now for our monthly conversation with Decorah School Superintendent Tim Cronin. And we didn't get you after last week's meeting. Had a full show last week, but we appreciate you adjusting to the schedule this week, Tim. First thing we'll talk about is a work session that will be coming up on Monday night between the school board and the city council. What are you trying to accomplish with that work session? What are the goals of that work session next Monday?
Yes, good question. Absolutely. So, among other things, we've got the Bolton and Mink recommendation, and I don't know if it's officially in final form yet, but we'd like to review that. And part of the plan is to, and then the other part is just to have the school board and the city council sit down together. I know that they have in the past, but there was different membership on both of those entities at the time. So we just kind of want to make sure we're on the same page. Clearly, some of the Bolton and Mink, they've got drawings, and I don't know if they're recommendations officially, or, they've got drawings that have different things on there. And so we want to get on the same page make sure the school board and city council are on the same page. From a school perspective, our number one priority is just kind of finding out what's available to us. We have a desire, I don't think it's a super big secret, we have a desire to build a new John Klein or new school west of where the existing John Klein is. And that would mean working out some kind of situation where, we make the city whole, or we figure out how to do some trading of land or whatnot, so that because that would impinge on what I call the Wednesday night softball field, but the kind of the public softball field. And so kind of start out with, if we did that, if we were able to trade land and move farther west, what kind of things, what's our to-do list then from the city perspective? And I know the drawings that were shared, I don't know if all of them had a softball field, but then there was the tennis courts became pickleball courts. And so I know we're well aware that this is a big tennis town. We have to have tennis courts for our athletes because tennis is a varsity sport at Decorah and an important one. So it's just kind of starting with, okay, land, and then maybe make a list of other things that we need to kind of clean up. So it'll be an interesting work session because when you talk about the outcomes, I don't think we're going to have outcomes that are specifically like we're going to build a parking ramp or a 3-story school or anything like that. It'll just kind of be starting with what if, and then I imagine they'll have to be like, okay, if we do some of this stuff, where can we go with it? Certainly one of the things that got a lot of attention was, two things that I would say: the drawings that closed Claiborne Road, which in front of the high school, and that was Bolton and Mink's drawing, and that's not been approved. I from a school district perspective, we don't have the authority to close streets and dig up cement, and so that would have to be something that, if we thought it was the way to go and the city thought it was the way to go, I imagine, not ever having closed a street like that before, I imagine that would have to go through city council. So I think that's one that got a lot of attention, and the fact that the tennis courts were portrayed as pickleball courts, I know has been mentioned to me more than once, and we're still well aware. I mean, we have to have tennis courts, and I just in general, as another example, the school footprint that was used was just a current outline of the current John Klein, and just understanding that when we get an architect in, the architect's going to look at what's the best building structure, how much space do we need, and understand that the way the current John Klein has been built, it was kind of built in a couple phases. So you've got an inner core and an outer core, and you just wouldn't. Another thing, I think, if you ask me what my goal was, is to make sure we have an open dialogue with the city and we kind of understand what our wants and desires are, and we kind of start working through that.
And I think you bring up the big point, long story longer, knowing the fact that there have been some drawings that have been made public, which was part of the Bolton Mink process of reviewing this area for the city, but we are nowhere near a decision from either the city's perspective or the school district's perspective, and that's an important part of this discussion right now, correct?
Oh, for sure. I mean, considering that the two groups haven't even met, and I don't even know how many informal conversations we've had, but the two groups haven't even met. So to be able to say, oh yeah, this is what's happening, that would just be untrue. Until we get together and start talking, I can't tell you exactly what will come out. There's got to be a little give and take on both sides. I'm encouraged that the city and the school board are meeting. I think we all have very similar goals, and we want to have, come up with a plan that is as good for the community of Decorah, not just the school age children, but everybody in the community. So, and I said it a few times, if there was a perfect solution, I would imagine we would have already arrived at that solution and we would have done it.
And probably a lot less for us to talk about in the media. So
sure,
that of course, none of that is correct. But moving on, I know obviously the start of the state legislature, education issues always get brought up. And just to put a caveat on this, we're having this conversation on Tuesday morning. There's the bill that has been put forward, some calling it a voucher bill, some calling it a school choice bill. How you feel about it is probably what you call the bill. What are your thoughts on what has at least been put forward to this point regarding that issue?
Yes. I think I think maybe it's officially called an education savings account bill. I guess in general, my concerns as an Iowan would be the cost. I saw that WHO out of Des Moines had a price tag of about $900 million over 4 years. So that concerns me. the rules for the legislature, I don't know if I've seen this as much, but if you got into the rules for the legislature, they put out all their rules, and Rule 32 says that, all bills have to go through Ways and Means except for things that are going to the Education Reform Committee. So again, that's kind of a curiosity that anything in education can go through and doesn't have to be vetted through Ways and Means like other bills would have to. And so those are kind of off the top of my head. Whatever you're calling it, education savings accounts or vouchers. In general, I would say, and I don't think anybody would be super surprised that a public school superintendent would say that we need healthy public schools in the state of Iowa. And that's for everybody. You might think to yourself, well, this really won't impact Decorah quite as much, but sure it does, because there's a ripple effect on anytime smaller districts close, that those children are afforded a public education. And so you'll see fewer rural districts in Iowa and larger districts that are then providing education. And there's just some kind of economies of scale that will be difficult to accomplish if you're busing children for longer periods of time. So I don't always think fewer school districts are the way to go for Iowa. There are places of Iowa that don't have a huge population, and those towns are kind of, the school and the town survive together. And that's one of those things for me that I think we're kind of more interdependent to having small rural schools in Iowa than we realize. So, and that's, I would say that when I was a superintendent at Central City, Dunkerton, and here at Decorah, that there's a part of the public education where everybody is entitled to a free and appropriate public education and gets accepted. That's important. So I don't know. So there's just some parts of that bill that are concerning. And so I would encourage people to check into that, to contact their elected official, find out where they stand, and voice their either support or concern, how it fits their life.
I'll ask it this question because I genuinely don't know. This idea that would give so much money for potentially sending a child to a education outside of the public school system, how is this different than perhaps a resident that lives in the Decorah school district then sends their kids to a neighboring public district? How is that different from a funding mechanism?
From a funding mechanism, and I don't know all the details of that, but the funding mechanism currently, like if a Decorah student goes to Allamakee, and vice versa, we keep track of that, and the state gives us money for the students that live in our attendance area, and then couple times a year, we would get a bill from Allamakee and vice versa. And it says, Johnny goes to this school and Susie goes to this school. And so we send out an invoice and they pay that invoice, and it's tracked that way. I've heard a couple different ways that the voucher system would work. I know last year there was talk that if you were homeschooling a child, you could just build up this money in your like personal savings account, maybe like a 529. And then use it for college tuition. But I haven't heard as many. I don't know if there are specifics about how that money would then go from the state to the family for private school. So that'd be another good question to if folks wanted to find out more about this, ask their legislature how that's going to work.
And there has been some talk in regards to education reform. I know when it comes to the budget that you will be preparing for ultimate approval in April this year, it's always a good reminder to me, and it's always surprising to me that the little amount of discretionary spending really districts have when it comes to funding their districts. There is some talk about giving districts a bit more flexibility than in years past. Would you be okay with the flexibility on its own or as a part of this whole thing? Where do you stand on that?
So the flexibility that they're talking about, it took me a while to understand this. We'd already had the ability to put some of those accounts into flexibility spending. And so what they're talking about is there's a PD fund. I'm going to maybe a homeschool. There's one more I'm missing that we can put from a targeted account that you can only spend it on that. You can move it over to a flexibility account, have a board resolution, and spend it for general fund purposes. So the one that they added this year was talented and gifted. So, I think preschool was one that I was missing. So we'd already really had flexibility with many of those accounts. And so they just added talented and gifted this year. So it felt like something that we'd already had flexibility, and they just added a little part to it. So it maybe sounds better than it is. And sure, if we're not spending money in a targeted account and we feel like we've met those services, it's better for school districts and for the states to spend that money and not just kind of keep it in an account where you can't access it. That being said, I've seen that flexibility tied to an answer to teacher salaries, which you surely could use it on teacher salaries, but it's kind of a one-time funding. So it's not an ongoing thing. So it's not really a long-term solution to teacher salaries. It would kind of be a one-year solution to teacher salaries. And, in general, when the legislature, when that's been reversed, we've always been told that the state legislature likes to fund things on an ongoing basis. So, we might be able to use some of those funds as a one-time stopgap measure, but it's not a long-term solution. So I guess my answer is, we appreciate the flexibility. We already had a lot of it to begin with, and it's not a long-term solution to fixing teacher salaries.
We've talked about two big issues related to the state legislature. Is there anything else that in your mind should be on the educational docket, at least here in the short term this year?
Well, the teacher shortage, teacher salaries. I would love to see the funds go to maybe, when we talk about restricted accounts, schools get their money in what is generally defined as kind of silos, where you can't spend your PEPAL funds for anything other than buildings and buses and stuff like that. Well, there's a fund called Teacher Salary Supplement, which has to go toward teacher salaries, obviously. And so if we wanted to put more money to education and we wanted to make sure it got to teachers, you could increase the teacher salary supplement. So I'd love to see that, because that would raise teacher salaries statewide and hopefully help a little bit of the teacher shortage. I know there's a workforce shortage everywhere, but certainly in education and teachers. So anything more we could do to helping people get certified to become a teacher and just understand that, boy, it's a tough thing, because, when we hire teachers in Decorah, in fact, I was having a conversation with a parent prior to the start of the year. And one of the questions was, I was saying how there's a little bit of a teacher shortage. Well, there is a teacher shortage, not a little bit of one, and how we had a staff, one teacher we still needed to hire. And it was, I don't know, it was August at least. And when I said that, I kind of said, I'm sure you expect us to have all our teachers hired when school starts. And the person corrected me and said, not only do I expect you to have teachers all hired, I expect you to have good teachers hired. And so just when we talk about a teacher shortage, just kind of remember, anytime that there's a proposal that makes it easier to get teacher certified, while we very well may be getting good people into the field of education, anytime you reduce the rigor for the teacher preparation program, then understand that you're going to reduce the quality of candidates, is what I'll say. That there's people out there that could be great teachers and not have a 4-year degree, but anytime you don't require that kind of stuff and you lower the bar, just understand there may very well be less good candidates out there. So not only a teacher shortage, but a quality teacher shortage would be something that I'd like to see the legislature focused on. But to answer your question, most of my energies and concerns are regarding the school voucher bill.
On to another issue that has gotten a lot of attention is the future of the Northeast Iowa Conference. At your previous board meeting, you approved the mediation agreement that basically the State Department of Education, the Girls Union, the Boys Union, and Waverly Shellrock, as well as the conference, came to last month. What does that mediation agreement mean, and what's the next step in the process on that front?
Well, the mediation agreement, the big thing is it means that we have agreed to the terms of this. We've gone through mediation. We've agreed to the terms of this deal, this agreement, outside of the Iowa Department of Ed intervening. And so just kind of understanding that if the Iowa Department of Ed would get involved with a conference, a school's request to join a conference, and if the Department of Ed would get involved, then they put things together, and they usually have a freeze for that conference for 4 years, is what's written into code. And so the one I know about, in 2012, there was some schools with the Tri-Rivers. Lisbon wanted to join the Tri-Rivers, but the rest of the schools in Lisbon's conference, the Big East, also wanted to join, and the Tri-Rivers didn't want to add all those schools. And that went to a process where the state got involved. The state made a bunch of schools join the Tri-Rivers, made a different conference out of some schools that weren't even involved in the dispute, and then froze everybody for 4 years. So the big part of this mediation is we have voluntarily done this without the State Department, and so it's not a 4-year locked in kind of thing. The agreement is written so that Waverly Shellrock will remain a member of the NEIC for the 23-24 school year. So starting, after this year's baseball season, they'll be in the conference 1 more year. It also defines a close date for Waverly Shellrock's membership, and that's going to be at the end of that year. Waverly Shellrock agrees not to take action to extend its membership. And then a piece, the NEIC still needs to be out there recruiting members. And, one of the things that some of the smaller schools aren't interested in joining the NEIC if Waverly Shellrock's in from a competitive standpoint. So one of the last parts is that any new members to the NEIC would not be required to play Waverly Shellrock other than conference championships. So if a school were to join the NEIC for next year, they wouldn't have to play Waverly Shellrock in basketball or volleyball or wrestle until it got time for conference championships. So that was, and again, I don't know how likely it would be that anybody would join on that short a time frame, but we wanted to be able to convey that message to schools that were interested.
You talked about the school calendar for next year at your previous meeting, and you're actually going to have 2 public hearings regarding this issue in February, from what I understand. Explain the need for 2 and what will take place during them.
Well, that could be, you might have to call that the Tim Cronin special. Okay. So when you upload your data and you tell the state, hey, we had these public hearings, they do have a place for an hours versus days public hearing, and then your public hearing on your calendar. I think a lot of districts roll that together. I don't have data, Darren. It might be 15% have 2 public hearings, but I like to follow the rules, and I don't want to get sideways with the Department of Ed's calendar police as it would. So we're just going to have our first public hearing where we talk about having an hours calendar versus a days calendar. We've switched to an hours calendar, and the district will probably, that'll be my recommendation. We stick with an hours calendar, and then we'll have a finalized calendar that we'll recommend. So, and we'll get that finalized draft out for people to view after an admin meeting this Thursday, because we want to just clean up a couple things.
For a guy with a T and an I in his first name, you really make sure to dot those I's and cross those T's, correct?
Well, there's just certain things like, it's probably not a big deal, but I do like to follow rules. And, anytime you upload that and say you had a public hearing, I like to follow rules.
Anything we're missing? Anything else you want to pass on to the public?
No, it was a short school board meeting with short by the terms of agenda items, but we had a good dialogue and a good discussion, and I think those were kind of the highlights. So yeah, for folks out there, I would encourage you to, like I said, to check out the language and the cost of any kind of voucher bill, and reach out to your elected officials. We'll get the public hearing on the calendar out, and Waverly Shell Rocks in the conference for one more year.
And we should let folks know people can watch school board meetings again, correct?
Yeah, they're archived on our YouTube site. So besides sporting events and a few interviews, the Viking report, that we should probably add a few more interviews to that. But you can also find our board meetings on our YouTube site.
All right, Tim, appreciate the time and the information as always. Look forward to our conversation in the month of February.
Sounds very good.
Tim Cronin, Decorah School Superintendent. Having our monthly conversation with Decorah City Manager Travis Goedken. A lot of things going on over the last couple of weeks, and since we've talked to you last year, I guess, back in December, Travis. But let's start our conversation on a couple of things that will be upcoming. Next Monday night, the City Council is going to be holding a work session with the school board. You've held a lot of discussion at the North Alley downtown area, and of course, the firm that you hired to study that area has come back with at least a preliminary report to get some feedback from community members. What are you hoping to get out of next Monday night's meeting? And work session, to be for sure.
Right. I do think the best outcome is going to be general consensus. Bolton and Mink will be on site as part of this joint work session to present their findings with a final report. They're still wrapping that up, including cost estimates, phased implementation, how they got to what recommendations they are making. And, I hope at the end of that work session, there can at least be a general consensus among the school board and the city council on what's the best path forward for Decorah. I think we'll touch lightly on, there's split ownership of that area between the city and the school, and that plan's going to come back with maybe school on city-owned property and city amenities on school-owned property, and we're going to have to start those conversations here sooner rather than later as well. And I'm sure we'll touch a little bit on that on Monday.
And I know, I believe in our previous conversation, you talked about the need for all these entities to work together, because the city will have their ideas, the school district has their ideas, and other entities around to have their own ideas. How important is it to make sure you have those open and honest dialogues and those conversations to get to the goal of making the community better, even though many people have many different ideas on how to do so?
Yeah. And, this sounds awful utopian, but no single entity is going to be able to do this individually, Darren, whether it's a new school here or, redevelopment of the existing area, improvements to the area. So there are certainly certain aspects within the plan that, even city staff and other city officials are, oh, geez, I really wish this were incorporated in the preliminary plan. But we can't lose sight of what the full picture is. Certain components aren't necessarily in there, but I tell you what, when I'm filling that's a bad analogy, but if I'm only have $10 to spend at the store and I got $15 worth of items in my cart, I have to pick which ones I'm going with, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we need to do. We've got $15 worth of stuff that we want to see done in that area, but only $10 worth that we can do.
And another work session will be held a week from Monday night. Last month, the Municipal Electric Utility Commission recommended the city move forward with another referendum to potentially look into a municipal electric utility in the community. What's going to happen on the 30th of this month?
So I would anticipate the conversation is going to focus around timing, as you indicated, Darren. MU task force recommended to hold a second referendum, but at the time the council deems appropriate for the community. And so I think that's going to be a key component of that work session. Take into consideration the final report from the MU task force, which is available on the city's website, as well as all the educational sessions on the YouTube channel. But I would believe that's going to be the greatest consideration on that work session. When
you've done a lot of work here this month regarding putting together the budget, a couple of work sessions to deal with the various aspects of the city budget. As you put it together and get it ready for ultimately July 1st, when that budget will be implemented, where's the city in good shape right now? What are going to be some of the biggest challenges as you put together this budget?
Mm-hmm. Oh boy, you got to start with a tough one on where we're sitting at. Good. Where we're sitting well at. I don't want to paint the picture of the sky is falling, but we certainly had some struggles this year putting the budget together. Any number of things to be considered. There were some recent changes to the Iowa property tax code, and I am fearful that there are going to be some more made this year that's going to make things further difficult. But in the good news, we're not looking at any additional debt that is coming online, debt payments. So we were able to see that debt service levy decrease a little bit and result in an overall impact to the total levy of not having to increase as much. But we did have to put together a budget that utilized the emergency levy this year of 27 cents and did some other things utilizing local option sales tax to pay off the debt associated with Locust Road to keep that debt service low again, and use some police and fire retirement savings from the previous pension system to buy down that levy as well. At the end of the day, we are currently looking at a total city tax levy of about $16.15 approximately. And so council set that max levy resolution, which is a little confusing at times because it does not include the debt service levy. So what you're going to see is a notice that says the city is increasing your tax dollar ask by 8.5%, but it excludes that debt service levy. And so it's not a true representation of what the city's budget looks like. That increase is actually about 5.25%. And that is considerably less than the current 8% plus inflation that we're seeing right now.
Why doesn't that include the debt service levy?
I don't have a good answer for you on that one. That's how the state legislature cooked this one up a few years back, and in their what they called the Truth in Taxation bill. It was supposed to provide a better picture to Joe Q citizen on what the evil city was doing with your tax dollars.
Interesting as you move forward, but what's the next step in putting together this budget? I know you've had those couple of work sessions. What's the next step in this process, which is a lengthy one that requires a lot of discussion and a lot of time and study?
Yes, and for every bit of time and study that's shown on the surface at council meetings, work sessions, it's tenfold on the staff side from department heads, Carrie with the city clerk, finance officer, and myself before that final presentation comes to council. But next steps moving forward, we will hold the max levy hearing on February 6th. At that meeting, after that hearing, the council will consider setting a public hearing for the full budget at the March 6th meeting. And at March 6th, after said hearing, they will consider adoption of the final budget. That does buy us an extra council meeting that should things change or any kind of hiccups come up, we would still have March 20th to fall back on prior to the March 31st submittal date. The state requires every budget be submitted by the 31st of March.
Is inflation is that the main headache in trying to put together a budget, or what other factors are causing the difficulties this year that perhaps you didn't see in years past?
Mm-hmm. Inflation is a big one as it relates directly to, compensation of employees is a part of that. But, police officers, trying to retain police officers, that was a huge issue, not just for the state of Decorah, but across the state. And so we were seeing significant increases to those positions specifically. But I don't want to make that sound like that's the largest detriment to it. Price of steel is still 30% higher than it was a year ago. That fire hydrant that we could replace, for $2,000 last year, it's now $3,000 or more. And lead times, we're experiencing 13, 14-month lead times on components. Last night at the Public Safety Committee meeting, we heard Fire Chief talk about 13-month lead time on bunker gear that we've already ordered and still sitting on and waiting.
So all things considered, still a lot of work to do, but how much really with what you're required to do from a service perspective, what the state requires you to do from a reporting perspective, how much power does the city elected officials have with just overall discretionary spending that, hey, we want to do this initiative here and what we want to do this initiative here? Because there's just so many budgets, there's so many factors that go into it. It's perhaps hard to explain it to a lay person like me and a not too bright person like myself, but how much power do you really have and how much discretionary income is there to spend?
Yeah. Oh, don't sell yourself short, Darren. You're plenty smart to understand this.
I'm a tremendous slouch too, by the way.
It's just time. To be honest with you, the state property tax code is so intense in depth. I mean, I've been doing this for over 10 years now, and still don't know truly the full ins and outs. Residential rollback formula, you can actually tie that back to the price of corn and soybeans. Because the fact that residential properties can't increase by 3% or any faster than ag properties. Well, ag properties their valuations considered based on the price of corn and soybeans. So it's pretty complex, but the long story short, the general tax levy, which are most commonly referred to as the 810 levy, it's capped at $8.10 per thousand of taxable valuation. That is the most flexible revenue that the city of Decorah receives. However, that is the levy used to fund our library, our fire department, our police department. Basically, if it's not water, sewer, or streets, it's coming out of the 810 levy. And as the demands of the community are increased in those specific areas, that's where that funding has to go, which leaves less and less for individual projects that we want to see done. So unfortunately, the budget we've put together this year, it does show again on paper a draw, expenditures exceeding revenues. However, we have decreased that considerably from what it was last year. But some of that negative is actually based on carryover also from last year's budget that we're not going to observe in this current fiscal year.
You are putting together a building code board of appeals. Tell us what that board will do, what power it will have, and what type of people you're looking to serve the community on such a board.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So the Board of Appeals was actually established back about 2 years ago when the state of Decorah updated its building codes and adopted the IBC, International Building Code, International Property Maintenance Code, and all those others to comprise of the Decorah Building Code. At that time, this Board of Appeals was created, and their powers are if, as Travis applies for a building permit for a single family home, and the building official says, well, Travis, you need to sprinkler based on building code, you need to sprinkler your home. Well, you and I both know that's not correct. And so it would give the individual the right to appeal that decision to this Board of Appeals. to interpret building code and say that the building official was incorrect in his interpretation. That's their power as defined by code. And code also says that to sit on the Board of Appeals, you must have some kind of education, experience, training as it relates to construction, understanding of building code, because you have to be able to interpret those. So contractors, architects, engineers, that's what we're looking for as it relates to the Board of Appeals.
And you got other openings for people willing to serve or wanting to serve on the city commissions and boards. Where are the opportunities right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you're not a architect or a contractor or engineer wanting to serve your community, we've got a couple other openings. The telecommunications board that has one opening that's going to probably see a decent amount of meeting time as we try and continue our advancement on the fiber to the premises. Civil Service Commission needs one position. Human Rights Commission, they will have 2 openings here at the end of this month. And we also have the Sustainability Commission has one opening currently.
And of course, one of my favorite subjects to talk about as we sit here and talk on a Wednesday morning, just got the email from City Engineer Jeremy Brill. Snow emergency in place starting tonight. The subtle reminders for the folks that need to deal with that issue.
Yes. So as you come home from work tonight, let's see. Well, so today, as we do this interview, it is the 18th when this snow emergency goes into effect. When I go home tonight, tomorrow is the 19th, and tomorrow is when we're worried about that snow removal, tomorrow morning. So I'm going to park on the odd side of the street, odd addressed side, since tomorrow will be the 19th. And on the 20th, so when I get home on the, or after 8 o'clock p.m. on the 19th, I can move and park on either side of the street. And by midnight, I need to be over on the even side. So again, when it turns the 20th, I need to be on the even side. But between 8 and noon or 8 and midnight, I can park on either. Just get it over there by the midnight on the 20th.
And when do people need to get their sidewalks cleared off after a snow event?
Oh, 24 hours. Unless I'm every once in a while, and I'll confuse my previous code revisions with, but I believe we are all 24 hours here. So again, have that snow removed, and here we go. Allowing snow ice accumulations. Yes, get it off 24 hours.
Always good to have a cheat sheet in front of you, and I totally respect that because I've got one on my computer end of things right now. Travis, anything we're missing? Anything else you want to pass on to the public this morning?
No, I think we've covered quite a bit here today, Darren. You know, it's always a good time sitting down with you, and I will point out Iowa legislative session has started, and so we'll be keeping a close eye on what our local representatives are supportive of or not supportive of, and especially as it relates to city operations. So it's a busy time of year for us. Budget, keeping an eye on the state, and we're gonna keep plugging away.
All right, Travis, appreciate the time as always, and enjoy parking on the even side of the street tomorrow. Thanks for the time as always. Look forward to our conversation next month.
Remember, it's only tomorrow when this airs on the 19th.
Yes, exactly. So even side, even days, odd side, odd days. So,
perfect. You got
all
it.
right, Travis Goedken, City Manager of Decorah. Our thanks to our guest, our thanks to our sponsor, Decorah Bank and Trust, and most importantly, thank you for tuning in, for logging on, or for watching our town. You're on 94.9 and 99.1 The River.